everyone. Welcome back to the Murder Blues Podcast. I'm Rod, and Josh is AFK this week. So I have an amazing pinch hitter. And
amazing. Wow.
A good friend. Amazing. I mean,
now the pressure's on me.
I mean, pressure. You deal with Andy. You can deal with me. It's Brian, from my good friend Brian from Dead at Santa Carla. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, buddy. Thanks for having me come on, man.
Thanks for offering him, man. It's been finding people to come record while Josh is away for a bit. It's been a problem, but it all works out when I get to talk with good people like you, my dude. So
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I always have a fun time talking horror with you and shit.
Yep, of course, man. It's we get to go dive into something that like is a little bit out of the reach of like normal murder moose. It's not an indie and it's not foreign, but it is cool as shit. So that's
agreed.
It was my first viewing of it too.
I'm excited that this was your first viewing. That's super cool. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, I love werewolf movies.
Mm-hmm.
I love werewolf movies, and it's not something that exactly gets made anymore. Like it's like you think about it, man.
It's you're right. If it's not called Underworld, then it doesn't have werewolves in it.
I love those movies for being bad, but they're not good.
No, they're not good movies, but they are fun.
Yeah, they're popcorn. You guys talked about it on one of your episodes of Dead in Santa Carla, and it was like you guys were going off about it, and it was like, yeah, those movies are cool, but man, they're not scary. They're
not horror movies.
With monsters. No. Yeah, and it's like I know all of our podcasts are like diverging a little bit, but like, dude, this movie, after watching it last night, I think is probably scary-wise scarier than An American Werewolf in London, and probably up there with like things like Dog Soldiers. Dog Soldiers is still one of my favorite werewolf movies ever. But like, man, I know you guys did your horror poll that you did with all the vampires, and I don't even know if you could do like.
Golly, I think we had 64 different vampire movies. Yeah. It'd be really hard to find 64 werewolf movies.
Yeah. Dude, you might be able to get 32, but like.
Well, if we put every single Howling sequel in there, that's 36 of them right there. So at least that's what it feels like anyway.
That would be like doing a hell movie, like a demon movie rankings, and like including every Hellraiser movie. You'd be like,
oh, Jesus. Yeah.
I was watching some movie or thing on YouTube today about like actors whose first movie they did was a horror movie, and like it figures out that Superman, what's his name, was in one of the last Hellraiser movies.
The current Superman, Henry Cavill?
Yeah, he was in the MMO Hellraiser.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I was just like,
is that Hellworld?
I think something like that. Yeah.
Is that the Scott Derrickson one?
I don't.
Because Scott Derrickson directed one of those. I haven't seen it. I know that much.
Yeah, Scott. I have connections, man. My wife works with his sister-in-law, and I really, really want to go and like.
Oh man, he's talented.
Like, yeah. Well, dude. And the problem is, too, though, like, she said he's working on something, but his IMDb doesn't have anything yet, because he hasn't done anything since he bailed from Doctor Strange 2.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, like, it'll be interesting to see, like, what he's doing. And that guy, I really, truly, like, I didn't realize for a long time that he did Exorcism of Emily Rose. Which is
such a good movie.
Yeah. I haven't watched it forever. I have it on DVD around here somewhere. I need to check that one out again. But I may have to go convince my wife to, like, see if she can, go hook me up. And
yeah, exactly. I would. Yeah, dude, 100%.
Dude, yeah, it's.
He directed apparently. Obviously, we don't get too off topic, but
it's the Murder Moose, dude.
Yeah, we do this a lot over in Santa Carla as well. Yeah. But I guess Scott Derrickson directed. Technically the scariest film ever made. Apparently, there was like this poll, and they used science in everything, and Sinister is the scariest film ever made.
It's man. Sinister feels like one of those movies now that people like go out of their way to like oh, it's not that bad, and it's not that like they shit on the bad guy demon thing. Like I hear that shit all the time. Like, oh, he's not scary, and it's like, you motherfuckers, like if you're watching this movie, that movie was one of the creepiest in.
Oh, that movie was super scary. Yes.
Yeah, and I don't get like scared by movies very often, and it's like it doesn't like. I go back to again. I've said it many times. Paranormal Activity, Blair Witch are the ones that I could go freak me out way more than anything. But that movie's atmosphere and everything is just. It goes back to horrifying little kids, but like horrifying little kids that are like doing insane shit. Like that movie. I don't know if I can think of an American movie that like goes to that kind of reaches of fucked upness, because kids just slaughtering their families
that's pretty dark shit, man. Yeah.
I mean, and the videos and the whole like snuff film aspect of it, that movie's wonderful. And you guys talked about it in I think you did it last year, right? And, I was like, man, this movie is I think it's one of those movies that's like kind of cool to be like, oh no, it's not that good, and like it's like, come the fuck on, especially with big budget horror. It's I mean, we have things that are mostly PG-13 outside of things like Halloween and stuff, right? So
right, yeah, big budget horror is usually not very scary, and that goes back a long time. Like in the mid '90s, remember they made a lot of like that was when the CGI craze started to take over. And that's when horror stopped being scary for me in a lot of regards. The Haunting. Yeah. That movie looks gorgeous, and it's super. It was like the super big budget. It's not fucking scary at all. Like, it's not even close to scary.
Look at Blair Witch. Blair Witch and Paranormal, both two movies that were made of no money because of them not showing anything.
It's horrifying.
That are fucking horrifying, yeah.
Yeah, all you see is creepy fucking footprints in Paranormal Activity, and then a lot of shaky cam and the great stuff. Both of those are clinics on how to use the environment to scare you, as opposed to just showing you this big monster or something. Yeah.
And I'm a fucked up individual. I know that. Like, I've watched a lot of fucked up shit, but like it's that thing where it's like I know my imagination is more fucked up than anything. Like, you can get me to like squirm and get uncomfortable with stuff, but that's like just like more like I don't like eyeball shit, and I really don't like when you start fucking with people's fingernails and shit like that. But, like,
it gives me the willies.
Yeah, it doesn't scare me though. Like it's like and you're just like going, man, it's horror. This Howling, man, is if I don't know if we actually said it. We're talking about the Howling from 1981 today. The transformations in that movie are like so well done, and they're not. American Werewolf in London is obviously, the transformation is like, I mean, that's iconic.
Yeah.
That scene, it will forever be known as like how well it was done. But man, I was sitting there watching this last night, and I'm like, I think this is actually incredibly more horrifying.
It is. I agree.
Someone watching it, because they're doing it in front of people, and the werewolves in this movie also they're shapeshifters. They're not like the typical full moon comes out kind of thing, and like, which is kind of, again, Dog Soldiers is kind of like that once you figure out like the twist at the end of that movie where the woman was one of them the whole time, right? And the transformation in this is great. The only thing about the werewolves in this movie that I thought was a little weird, the ears grow out of the top of their head.
It's what it looks like, yeah. I don't know if they do. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes. Like, particularly, it very much looks like they grow out of the top of the head, especially when Eddie is transforming near the end of the second act. And I remember when I was watching it the other night and last night for this episode, I was like, where the fuck are them ears coming from? But on some of the other ones, you can actually see that they are on the side. They're just long as shit.
Yeah.
Like they're almost like bunny rabbit ears in a sense. But
the ears were like the weirdest thing about them.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, I don't hate it, but it was just that one thing about him that you're just like, if I could change one thing.
Yeah, regarding the design, I get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about werewolf designs in one of our episodes, and I like this werewolf design more than American Werewolf.
Yeah.
I like the American Werewolf design, but it's just a big ass dog.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's just a big ass dog. But I do like the. I guess this would be the more lycanthrope inspired design. I like this a lot more.
That's why I love dog soldiers, because they're the massively large, like extended, like those haunches that come up, and they're just like long and lanky and just like horrifying, because like that movie, the part of the reason why they're so scary in that movie is because they're in closed spaces. They're in that house, those houses for most of the movie, that one house, right, for most of the movie. But yeah, this design is awesome, and it's something you don't get in werewolf movies, that it's a pack of werewolves.
Right, yeah. It's a fucking cult, man.
Yeah, it's a cult, and you're sitting there, and it's like, this movie is like, I'm not worrying about spoiling a almost, I mean,
it's
fuck,
a,
this movie
it's a 41-year-old movie.
It's 40 years old. This
40
month.
years old. Yep, 40. Yeah, this came out in 80 or 81. 81. Yeah.
81. We are 3 days off from the 40th anniversary.
Oh, holy shit! Wow, good timing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's 10th of April, 1981.
That's fantastic.
In the U.S.
That was an accident, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
That was an accident. How did we accidentally do this? That's awesome.
Well, they just got it. They probably added it on Shudder because of the 40th anniversary.
Probably. I think. I want to say it's 40 years for The Fog as well, because I think The Fog came out in 81.
Dude, I know how much you love Fog and The Fog, and that was the. I watched that for the first time because of you guys, and dude, Carpenter is just his 80s stuff. I mean, Halloween into his 80s stuff is just. It's chef's kiss. It's so perfect.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge Fog fan, obviously.
I know you, dude. I think you kind of hold like the Fog up in the regard that a lot of people don't. I
do. I know why though. It's the first horror movie I ever saw.
Yeah.
I know it is. It's the first horror movie that I can remember seeing. Of course, I was only 4 when it came out. I probably saw it when I was 5 or 6 on accident. My mom didn't mean to, but she wasn't paying attention, and I was watching The Fog or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably, it's very a whole lot of nostalgia for me. Yeah. So.
But it's why, I mean, I've been watching Alien. I mean, you heard me talk about Alien both on you guys the regular show and then like when we did the ranking. I've been watching that movie. I don't remember the first time I watched Alien or Aliens. Like it's been so many times, and like I have early memories of watching vampire movies with my grandma, and it's like you get. I think a lot of us or most of us get started pretty early. I know I've listened to other podcasts on the network talking about it, like it's not always the case, right? Other people get started later on in life.
Sometimes, yeah. I think Cece was one of the ones that started a little later. She said.
Yeah.
From the Scream Queens pod.
Yeah, which I love CC. She's wonderful.
She's super. She's super awesome. Her and Jess both great.
Yeah. Yeah, they're awesome. They're awesome people. So it's I was gonna say I'm not really worried about spoiling stuff. You guys. So if you guys haven't seen The Howling, you can go watch it. It's on Shudder.
It's on Shudder, baby.
Yeah, dude. Shudder's
killing it.
Yeah, I know. They're me and Kyle talked about Slacks last week.
I need to watch that. I haven't watched it yet. I totally want to watch it. I might watch it tonight.
I was impressed with that movie. Dude, me and Kyle raved about it for like over an hour last week.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Sunday night. Yeah. It's like everything they do with their name on it. They're not always like amazing movies, right? But they're always at least entertaining and like watchable movies, right?
Yeah.
I watched the Nazi vampire movie that's on Shudder. That was okay, but man, Dark and the Wicked was wonderful. If you haven't watched it yet,
I haven't watched that yet.
Josh and I talked about it like months ago, like when it came out at the end of last year. And A Good Woman is hard to find, which is on there also, is one of the most nail-biting movies I've ever seen, from like just like anxiety causing from start to finish. And you're sitting there and it's like they're just putting out these movies that are like, they put out like thriller horror, and they don't care. They just put out these movies that are, you know, people on with the service are interested in. They just fucking, everything they're doing has been like awesome, right?
Yeah.
I'm not
everything. Every Shudder exclusive that I've watched has been a competent film.
Yeah.
You know?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's like, I wasn't a huge fan of, I just talked about this with Kyle, The Shed or The Shack or whatever.
Oh, The Shed.
Yeah, The Shed. Like, it was like the concept. It was just a little bit of a miss for me, but like it was still entertaining.
Yeah.
It was like they put their name on stuff, and you go, okay, I know I'm gonna at least have fun watching this, right? Which is
I enjoyed it.
Good, man. Yeah. So it's that their whole, like, they've been playing a whole back catalog of like, what's the Italian horror from the 70s up that I need.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. Like that era.
Yeah, Giolo, or what's the?
Oh, golly, what's his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not gonna look it up. I'm not gonna look it up.
Yeah, but that kind of stuff. Like, I finally watched Suspiria a couple months ago.
Dario Argento. Yeah.
Yeah, but that movie's great. But like, it's good to see these, like, because I think The Howling has always been like. Because it came out, was it the same year as American Werewolf?
Oh, yeah, they both came out the same year. Yeah. That year was a good year for werewolves.
Yeah.
I think there was a third. I think Wolfen came out that year, too, if memory serves me correctly. I haven't seen it in many years. Yeah, Wolfen came out in 1981 also.
I don't know if I've heard of that one.
Oh, it's good. I mean, it's a good movie. It is. It's a good movie. So yeah, 81 werewolves ruled the fucking Hollywood world in 81. Yeah. It was badass.
They don't anymore, man. And
they don't. Like, they really don't. Like, there hasn't been, like, okay, I'm probably in the minority. I know I'm in the minority. I actually enjoyed the Wolfman remake with Benicio del Toro.
Yeah, I haven't seen it because it was one of those movies where it was like, it got shit on so bad.
It got super shit on. Yeah. I think the problem with that movie was that, and since you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it. I mean, but I'm sure you can figure out what it's fucking about. Guy gets bit by a werewolf, turns into, you know what I mean?
It's a remake of the 40s one, right? With,
it's a remake of the original Universal monster, Wolfman. Yeah. And I think that people weren't expecting it to be a gore fest. It fucking is. Yeah. It's awesome. I really think that movie is so much better than what the critics gave it, because it got super shit on. But I got it on Blu-ray. I watch it relatively regularly. But honestly, there really hasn't been like a real good, super high quality fucking werewolf movie in a long time.
So in I don't know why. 2000s, we had Ginger Snaps, and we had and Dog Soldiers, outside of like people like in our like circles of this podcast, like who were like, you know, we're so addicted to horror, we're recording podcasts about horror movies. Like, I don't think normal, like an average film goer has ever heard of either one of those movies.
Probably not. Yeah, you're probably right.
And
is Dog Soldiers Canadian also?
No, it's a British movie.
Oh, it's British.
It's the guy who did. It's the guy who did Descent.
I didn't know that. I've seen it once a long time ago.
Yeah, you need to watch it.
I need to watch it again. I've been. I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool.
It was another movie, like a relatively, like, you know, indie kind of thing, because the movie only had 3 werewolf suits, and so they did a lot with, like, you know, doing the you know, like managing it to be more than 3 werewolves, and you know, doing all the stuff that they were doing. And again, it shares a lot with The Howling, because it's that isolation of like these people being attacked by multiple werewolves, which is way more horrifying than one werewolf, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, what's scarier than one werewolf? 16.
Dude,
Roughly. However fucking many there were.
The final act of fucking the Howling is
It's
horrifying.
bonkers. It's bonkers and it's scary as shit. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. You're sitting there and you're like, man, it is. You have a character going out and doing what she's on this fucking like relaxing vacation because she's having a mental breakdown because this serial killer tried to kill her, who ends up being one of these werewolves. And the fact that they had this thing where it's like, I think they did a lot of things that were pretty like unique for werewolf like films, right? In this, like, they made it so they can change whenever they want.
Yep.
They made it so that like you fuck them up real good, they don't die unless you. It seemed like silver was the only way to.
I think they say silver and fire. You got to burn them also, or you can burn them as well.
Which you go that last scene with the barn burning down, and you go, how many of them were trapped in there? And you see them like, kind of like breaking through with their like mouths and everything like that, but like they get swarmed after that, and you're like, either A, they broke out, which doesn't make any sense, like because they were driving away, but how many fucking werewolves are in this goddamn world? Like
a lot.
Yeah, it's like, Jesus Christ, because that's one of those things about this movie, like you don't see much of a werewolf anything well over half of the movie,
right?
Like it's a 90-minute movie, and an hour and 31, and you're
midway through the second act before you even see your first sign of a werewolf. And that's pretty much really when her husband is turned. I want to say.
Yeah, dude, that was the thing. This movie gets it. Like, you have this reporter who's played by Dee Wallace, who I'm sitting there watching this last night, and my wife's like, now I want to watch Cujo. And I'm like, I don't understand the things that my wife, like, she'll watch horror, but like she likes very specific horror. But, and she's sitting there with like her husband on this, like after she gets like almost mauled to death by this serial killer, and they go out into the middle of the woods, and he gets bit, like, because he's trying to hang out with the good old boys who are obviously the other werewolves in this equation. And then like that night he's like, I gotta fuck a werewolf, because I'm just like, that was the one scene in this whole movie where I kind of groaned because
it's pretty. It's actually kind of rough. It hasn't aged well.
Especially the end of it.
Yeah, the animated. Cartoon wolves fucking.
It's like the shadows of them fucking, and you're like, because
they put that was bold. That's a pretty bad shot. And when I thought that, as bad as it is, it literally reminded me of quite possibly the worst shot in cinematic history, which is in Jaws 3D when Jaws is coming at the screen. It's that bad. I saw that, I was like, oh shit, that didn't age well at all. But in 1981, I'm gonna give them a pass because.
Well, it's the thing where it's like, it's that thing where VHS was a thing, right? And this was as you saw in the beginning of this movie with all the porn, but they were never HD transfers of these movies were not something that
they did not think of that at all. No, this movie on Shudder looks better than it did in the theater when they saw it in 81.
Oh yeah,
like that's what we have to remember. Yeah.
And you're sitting there, and it's also, you're watching something in the theater. You can't pause it, right? You can't pause it and go, what the fuck? And you're sitting there going, okay, well, you give them credit for it. Like you kind of go, it's. I mean, there's certain things that, like, from the 80s specifically, that you start going, I saw another list on What Culture, I think, the other day about the most paused scenes in horror movies, and one of them was the ending of Nightmare on Elm Street, which is still one of the worst things I've ever seen in any movie. When the mom gets pulled through the window, and it's just like, it's awkward in one of those scenes, and you're just like, This shit happens now still. Like, and it happens in non-horror movies. I cringe every time. My wife has the Marvel movies on constantly in my house, and the end of Infinity War when Hulk is in the Iron Man suit, and it's just his head. It is some of the worst looking CGI that you can tell that it's like his head. Look at the next time you watch that movie or put it on or something. It is painful how bad his head looks hanging out of that
funny.
Iron Man suit. Like the Hulkbuster suit, and you're just like, oh, and that's like a $250 million Marvel movie.
Yeah.
But I like, other than that, like the transformations in this movie were a little like they're unique as fuck because like they have that like element of like, it feels like a chemical reaction happening.
Yeah.
Like when it's like
there's a lot of
like,
bubbling skin.
Yeah.
And it's a little it's kind of a goopy affair in many regards. But it's not as clean as the American Werewolf in London transformation is. But I love both of them. I really do. I kind of, going into this, I would say, oh, American Werewolf, that's the greatest in the world. And then I watched this last night, and I'm like, man, this is fucking good. Like, this transformation's super fucking cool. And it's because it's a much more sinister affair.
Yeah.
And it adds to the dark nature of the movie. It's and they're done really well, and they're still got the use of sound in these is great because he's transforming into his whole bone structure's changing and everything. The muscle structure, it's all changing, and you can hear all that cool shit going on, and you can see it going on under the surface of the skin. It's done really well. It's really good.
I also love that, like, it feels like it kind of feels cat-like, but their eyes being that green color is very, like, unique, it feels like. And they make them, they just got these creepy fucking eyes. And
I thought that motherfucker's eyes was going to pop out.
Yeah. Well, dude, that Eddie.
I was like, holy shit, what is happening to him? I mean, I knew it was happening, but what is happening? Yeah.
Eddie is sitting there in that movie and has a bullet through his head, like, after, like, the cop. Also, the cops, is it just me? And my wife said the same thing. The cops just start shooting randomly into the jerk-off
yes.
booth. And you're like, how did they kill no one else?
They're lucky they didn't shoot Dee Wallace and we had the shortest fucking werewolf movie. Because, they just started opening fire.
Through the door.
Incompetent as hell. Yeah, like the worst cops on the planet.
And they hit this motherfucker's like center of the fucking forehead.
Yeah.
Like, it's like when he comes back, because you don't know where they hit him, and then when he comes back, like 3/4 of the movie in, like where you see him for the first time, he's like, there's a bullet wound like right in the center of his forehead. You're like, so these motherfuckers just spray and prayed. And spray and prayed. And they hit this motherfucker in the center of the forehead. Jesus Christ, man. And like, they're shooting M16s into the fucking, like, I don't know what they're like. Oh my God, how did they shoot this woman? But yeah, so the thing is, and this is like we were talking about before, the fact that the werewolves are doing these transformations around people is the fucking horrifying part of it, because Eddie does this in front of the other reporter girl, and you're like, what the fuck? And then does it, like, he starts doing it again in front of Dee Wallace, who then, like, slams him in the fucking head with the hydrochloric acid, right? And it's like...
Yeah, she yeets some acid onto him.
Dude, and he looks wicked the next time you see him, dude. He's like... He's got, like, half of his head is missing, and, like, you could see his skull and everything like that, and... It's
pretty rad.
The husband shows up for the first chick that he ate, and these motherfuckers in this movie know they're basically invincible, and he's like, oh, here's your rifle back. I'm going to I don't care. I'm gonna turn into a werewolf. And little does Eddie know that this dude has actually made a bunch of silver.
Yeah, he bought those silver bullets from Dick Miller.
Yeah, dude. That is the favorite part of the movie with like that bookstore guy, Dick Miller, and is like he's sitting there and he's like, he's got all these occult books and all that shit because they go out and what's the other reporter's name? I don't
Marsha.
know if I know what her Marsha.
Yeah, played by Elizabeth Brooks.
Yeah, they go. They're like investigating this Eddie dude.
Oh wait,
who'd
no,
been
that's not
killing
Marsha.
people.
I apologize. Marsha's the female werewolf. I apologize.
The one from the end.
Yeah. The other reporter is I guess it's Donna. No, I don't think. I'm trying to find. I got the IMDb pulled up and.
Yeah, I do too. I always do that, but like.
I'm guessing Donna.
No, it's Belinda Boleski. I think it's what's her name? God, it's Terry Fisher is her. I think. That has to be her.
That's got to be. Yeah, that's got to be her. Yeah. There you go. Terry.
They're investigating this Eddie after like the police tried to kill Dee Wallace. And they like his body ends up disappearing. And I don't know exactly how you go into like, because they find his apartment, right, or wherever he's like staying.
Yeah, they find his apartment and her and. What turns out
her
to
husband.
Be the hero of the movie. I think it's Chris.
Yeah.
They find his apartment. It's pretty seedy looking. He's got porn on and shit all over the place. Dude, and drawings of himself all over the place.
The first third of this movie feels like a softcore porn.
Yeah, it does. There's a lot of scattered boobs and stuff.
Yeah, I mean they're going through like they're in the shady part, like red light district of LA.
Yeah,
right, is like what the opening scene with Karen was Dee Wallace's character. Like this Eddie guy's gotten obsessed with her from being on the news, and he wants her to. He's been calling her, so like she's working with the police to like catch this dude, and he ends up like getting her to go to this jerk off booth.
Yeah,
which is just
that's exactly what it is too.
Yeah.
Then he pops a quarter in.
Yeah. Well, my wife was sitting there. She's like, or was walking around doing shit, and she goes, "What? Where are they?" I'm like, "Oh, it's just a jerk off booth." She's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, they used to have these booths where you go in and basically you didn't have a VHS player at home, so you went and paid to watch a porno and rub on and like jerk it off and
100%
leave a mess on the floor." That's like that must have been the worst job of all time to be the guy who like the janitor of those places who had to fucking mop up
semen and shit.
Yeah, mop up cum every night. Oh my god. Yeah, he meets her in there, but there's like she goes into this gangbang booth, and you're just like, what the fuck? And it's like, it's pretty like raunchy shit, like, because that shit doesn't like come by in like mainstream like films, even horror. Like that's like pretty intense for that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think of like 8mm with Nicolas Cage, where he's like, the whole snuff film thing, but this like. It's pretty intense, like where this is going at, and it like that kind of vibe kind of goes all the way up until the husband gets bitten and fucks the other werewolf who is like,
yeah, that would be Marsha.
Yeah, dude, she is beautiful.
Yeah, she was. Like, Elizabeth Brooks was gorgeous. Yeah, she actually passed away at the age of 46. She was super young. She lost a battle with cancer.
Jesus fucking Christ.
He's dead too. Crazy enough. Christopher Stone that plays Dee Wallace's husband Bill, he passed away he was pretty young too, actually. He died in 95. So
Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah, he was only 55.
Yeah, he did a lot. He was in Cujo, right?
Yeah, he was in Cujo as well. Yeah. He got to sleep with Dee Wallace in 2 separate movies. 2 separate horror films.
Dude, he had the most like this movie has the most like 70s mustache ever. That's
dude, I envy it. I wish I could grow a dope ass porn stash.
Dude, I can't. people in my stream were giving me shit, and so I went like a week and a half and didn't shave, and I looked like it just looks. I don't grow facial. I just grow patches.
I don't either. Yeah, I don't either.
It's like God damn. Oh, that's why we both look like we're 24.
Fucking 23, 24. Yeah.
But man, so like this whole it's. So Dee Wallace, Karen White's her character, like she gets attacked by this guy, and the cops shoot him. She breaks down on the air the next time she tries to like go in and like recap what happened, and so her psychiatrist tells her you need to go to this house I have and hang out.
Yeah, the colony.
And so that's the one thing that was a little like they kind of don't explain it in this movie, and they kind of like reference it towards the end. They don't really explain how they select who they're gonna make werewolves, right? They're just like, well, we kind of gotta hide now because of like modern times, but they don't really explain it. It's just like everyone who lives here ends up being a fucking werewolf, which is, and it's all run by the cult. The crazy psychiatrist who's like a behavioral analyst or something like that. They call him at some point in the movie, because he's one of the people that dies at the end. And dude, I have to laugh though. The old werewolf.
Oh, the guy that wanted to burn himself.
Yeah. He's like drunk the first night they come to the beach.
Yeah.
Like to this place, and he's like, "I'm gonna throw myself in the fire."
Yeah.
It's like you're like. What kind of shit is this? It's like when you kind of let your guard down because you're fucked up, you're drunk as shit, and you're sitting there going, you realize that you're a horrible human being because you've been eating people for this guy's like 85.
Could be it.
yeah, and you're like,
I'm tired of eating people.
I've killed 732 people, and I'm kind of feeling bad about it in my old age. I'm gonna throw myself into this fire, and they're all like, hey, this guy can't handle his booze. Ah, there are babies buried in my backyard. And the man, it's funny because it's like you sitting there and they get to this colony and you're like Karen Dee Wallace isn't doing any more, like she's not investigating, she's just trying to recover because she's like the whole thing that's going through most of this movie is she doesn't remember this attack. Like she doesn't remember
seeing Eddie because there's the attack is pretty interesting because you know he shows up behind her and he doesn't let her turn around. Yeah. And he talks to her for a while, and then he tells her to turn around. And when she turns around, she's actually horrified by what she sees, but she doesn't remember what she sees at all.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the catalyst for the whole reason for her to be going to this colony and for her breakdown at work and everything is this bit of amnesia that she's having. So
yeah, and They do a good job of like just kind of like you're going into this movie knowing what this movie is, but like if you came on and you just put that you started The Howling at like home now and you'd never seen it and you just like didn't know it was called The Howling and you just put it on and you're sitting there and going, you kind of don't know what Eddie is, right? You kind of like you see like kind of like an outline, but he's not fully transformed. Because you see it later on. It takes like 2 or 3 minutes. It's not a quick process.
Well, it's not a quick process for him at that time, but we don't know if he was doing that to fuck with that girl, to fuck with Terry, you know, because he knew he had her. You know what I mean? Or not Terry. It's when he's changing again in front of Dee Wallace's character, Karen.
Yeah, Karen. Yeah.
But yeah, he knew he pretty much thought he had her. So I mean, he could have been just taking his sweet ass time and just kind of relishing in it, you know, because he was very, you know, he's super ego. He had a super big ego. You could tell by all the stuff that he was saying to Karen and shit. Real narcissistic.
When they find his room and there's all the drawings and shit, it's like it's like I think it's his victims. Like he was drawing pictures of his victims as werewolves or something like that. It kind of seems like, along with his this code, which the psychiatrist, the cult leader, who's also a werewolf, obviously, is what's he say that like it's like the creative half of the brain, which like there's a lot of like serial killers end up having are really good artists because it's the same half of the brain with the like creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Eddie is it's funny because like he's not the only like all the werewolves are werewolves, right? But like Eddie's the craziest of the ones that you see, and but the one dude's pretty fucking creepy too. That gets his the one who gets his arm chopped off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, who's chasing Terry when she's like investigating because I think that like she's like her and her Terry's like figures out when they finds Eddie's room that this drawing and all this stuff, like I don't know how she correlates it to the I don't know if it like
how she correlates it to the colony.
Yeah,
because she when she goes to be with Karen just because Karen calls her and asks, she's like, can you come be with me, and she says yes, so she goes, and she's like on a hike, and she's still investigating and doing shit, but I do think that Karen actually she also calls her because something funky's going on. So she sees that there was a picture of a landscape that Eddie had drawn, and it was that she had found the spot, and she's like, "Oh shit, Eddie's been here," you know. So so that's how she connected Eddie to the colony. It was by him drawing that landscape.
I think it was just more of like the first time I'm watching it, was just trying to correlate like how everything was happening with her, and that because it's. The D. Wallace is sitting there doing her thing and trying to like figure out what's wrong with her and what happened, and like Terry's the only one doing actual reporting and investigating most of it. But it's like, it's actually kind of like it's that unique story where you have the trauma, like, you know, the traumatic incident victim in D. Wallace, and then everyone else is trying to figure out what actually happened. And D. Wallace is still like kind of the most badass one out of everyone through most of the movie, and because she survives most of it. But she survives most of it. It's that, man. It's I don't know. I like if I'm getting more and more fond of these horror movies that don't like. I think I've seen enough horror movies that have like happy endings, right? And so it's like when you do different stuff like that and change it up, it's a more interesting experience.
For sure.
Most of the time.
Yeah, because this movie doesn't end on a bright note at all, really.
No.
I mean, I think that's kind of what I love about this movie is the fact that this movie has such a unique tone for a horror film. It's because it's not your typical quote unquote werewolf movie.
Yeah.
It plays out like a slasher police procedural type of thing, the first half of the film. Yeah. And then it does a complete fucking flip pretty much after Bill gets it on with fucking She-Wolf. And because that's when the movie really pretty much changes into a slasher werewolf movie.
It gets real brutal at that part because like she wakes up and like he's like Bill's like gone in the middle of the night, and she's like having all these nightmares, and it's because he had gotten bit the previous night, and he comes like he's like healing, but like he wakes up and he like wanders out. And
he just has to follow his wolf boner. Led him to some wolf booty, and it's a disturbing scene because Elizabeth Brooks was gorgeous, and then they both start turning in the middle of having sex, and they're drooling all over each other and shit.
Yeah, and you can tell it's whatever prosthetics they have in their mouths are like probably pretty hard to like breathe.
Probably,
and, like,
yeah.
And talk, and because they don't talk, but like you hear enough like. You think about where like vampire movies and stuff. My wife and I've never watched Buffy, so we've been watching Buffy, and like that's the same. It looks like you could tell like when they had those teeth on in the Buffy show, they couldn't talk right.
Right.
Yeah, he's just like drooling, and then she slashes him down the back, which like D. Wallace sees later, and she's like, "Where did that come from?" And he's like, "I got that in the attack," and she's like, "No, you didn't," and then he
belts her. Yeah.
Belts her, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, it's like that's when he goes to. That's when he officially becomes a villain.
Yeah. Well, is he in any of the rest of the? Is he in the end scene, or is that like the last time you really see him? I don't.
It's kind of the last time you see him because he actually turns her because he's the one that gets the bite in on Karen, and then he gets shot while he's in the back seat. And
is that him? Oh yeah,
because you see his tattoo. Yeah. That's he's laying over, and you just see his tattoo on his arm.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much the last time you really see his face. Yeah. The rest in the movie.
Yeah, that's the point where it's like that is the true turning point where it's you're right. It's this weird like erotic crime thriller for the first like half, right? And it's like. That it just breaks the tone, right? It completely snaps it, and it's like, I also was like really impressed with this movie with the score because the score like changed a lot. Like they have like organ scenes where they're just using organs, like which are that very gothic feeling, and then they go into more 80s kind of like synth sounding stuff.
Yeah.
And kind of like Carpenter-esque. Like not as...
I can hear you where you're coming from. Pino Donaggio is the guy that did the music for this movie.
Yeah. Well, the guy who did the transformations in the movie was a Rick Baker protege, right?
Yeah, I think so. They actually had tried to hire the Rick Baker. He was actually... I guess he was actually hired but left to go do the American Werewolf in London movie. But the transformation scenes were created by Rob Bottin. He did those. Who did I believe the stuff on The Thing with the John Carpenter film. So
yeah, again, one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's the special effects. You could do amazing practical effects, and I will forever love you as a horror movie if you do, and it just makes me so much happier. Which is why that's why we could poke fun at the one scene in this movie that doesn't use practical effects, where they're like trying to do other stuff with the werewolves fucking.
So it's not good. It really isn't. No. I saw that. I was like, oh shit, that's right up there with Jaws 3D, man.
Yeah.
Super bad shot. But at the time,
Yeah. Well, dude, it's and it wasn't like it's that pausing it and putting it like I watched on a 70-inch TV. You're not like you weren't watching this shit like on a 70-inch TV on home video or whatever back in the day because you didn't get 70-inch TVs. But man, yeah. So like, it's so funny because it seems like this whole colony is this psychologist is like, I don't know if he's trying to keep him from. They don't really explain what he's trying to do with him, right? Like he kind of talks about adapting.
That's one of the flaws of the movie is that it doesn't really seem like it has much of an end game.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I don't know. I hadn't seen it in 10 years.
Yeah.
Easily at least 10 years. And I think this is probably maybe only my third or fourth viewing of the movie.
Yeah.
I never really. I think I might have owned a DVD once a long time ago, but just bought it just because. But yeah, it's that's the only issue I have with the movie is that it just doesn't seem like there's a real clear like end game with these werewolves? Are they trying to turn literally everybody? You know, it's really not explained all that well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Which is one of the things you go, it only because, and I think only because they pull a D Wallace into the barn at the end, and it's like they're doing some kind of ceremony or something, almost like, and it's like, you're like, but what is the point? Like, they have Tracy's all like, or Terry's all like, you know, slate, like put out on the table with like all her skin removed over her ribs, and you go, I mean, it's cool and everything like that, but it's like the thing that's like, it's not as story heavy as American Werewolf in London.
No,
like,
it's not.
Again, I think American Werewolf in London is it's way more of a comedy horror, right? It's like,
that's got but American Werewolf in London has a true identity from the beginning, and it's because of the way, it's because of the focal point of the movie being the tragic victim hero kind of thing, you know, the balance between him trying to do good and being stuck with this curse. So in that sense, it's kind of, American Werewolf in London is very much more similar to like the Wolfman than this. This is a completely different breed of movie.
Yeah, it's more like once you get hit by it, you become a killer, right? You like, these people all seem to enjoy it, and you have like all these like seemingly normal people in this colony who are like sitting there going, oh yeah, so all like, they're just in the drop of a hat are ready to go kill people and turn into werewolves, right? It's, you know, you talked about it before, but like, I feel like this movie might have some like, I wonder if there were like undertones of like domestic violence, because the whole like the husband hitting her, and like, but like, it's that weird transition of Dee Wallace's character being like so traumatized, right? And like, you have the traumatization of this first incident, and then like the husband is hitting her and all this stuff, and it's this weird, it's like this interesting thing where it's like, are they trying to say more than I think they did because of how this movie is? I'm wondering. I'm curious about that. So
yeah, I never thought about that.
It's always interesting, is like with stuff like that. It's like, been watching more movies that are like horror movies that like have messages in them. So I don't know if that makes it go, do I try seeing messages in other things? I don't know. It's
I'd like to read the book that this is based off of, because this was based off the novel.
Yeah.
By what's his name? Brandner is his last name. I want to say Gary Brandner, I think, is the guy that wrote this.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of differences. Like even the main protagonist, Karen, her last name is different and stuff like that. But it's they cut out like rape sequences that were in the novel, I guess.
That doesn't.
Yeah, they cut out a lot, which is, you know, that's normal. That's normal for them to do. But
I mean, it's rape is not so, and there's certain things that you don't end up like you could get away with in books that you can't. It's harder to get away with in Hollywood, right? Like it's, I think we were talking about, we were watching. Me and Kyle were talking about Slacks, and we were talking about. We ended up talking about it because Beverly's father from the first one was in it.
Yeah.
As like, he's like the CEO of this company. And the whole like gangbang scene from the book that doesn't like pop up in the It movie because you don't have film sequences with 12-year-olds fucking. So it's kind of like, it's, well, I mean, think about it, dude. This is in 81, and we had in the 70s had stuff like The Last House on the Left and I Spit on Your Grave and stuff like that, right? And that stuff that had those real brutal rape sequences, and even being exploitative, like horror, like, you know, shocker cinema, right? In those movies, I mean, this is 50 years after those movies came out, and you still talk about them, and both of those movies have been remade. I've never seen the original, either one of those, but they're still like pretty notorious movies because of rape sequences, right? And
right.
So you sit there, and that's it's not an easy thing to do class, like with a lot of class, and so it makes sense. So the while Terry's running around like investigating after she comes out to say Karen, she finds Eddie's house.
Yeah, he's got a shanty there too.
Yeah, and he's like, was he in a closet? I don't quite know if I understand.
I don't know. All I know is he just literally straight up just shows up.
Yeah. That was there. Oh, that wasn't even Eddie. Yeah, that was that other guy, right? That was because that was the.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because Eddie, it is Eddie that finishes her off though.
Yeah.
Because he has his arms, so you can tell. But
look what that bitch did to me. Like,
yeah. It's pretty cool when she cuts off that arm though, because it starts to transform back into a human arm.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, that the practical effects on that are really fucking good. Because you can see the hand like trying to open and close and shit, and it's not attached to the body. It looks like a real fucking hand, man. Like, they did a good job making that. I don't know if it is a real hand and like they just shot it where he's like, you can't see, and they put a prosthetic on it to make it look off. But it does look really good. Yeah,
it's that transformation back, and it's which is like, I think it might be one of the more like kind of like cliched werewolf things in this, like where you turn right back into a human when you die. It seems like they don't really go into it that much, because like most of the werewolves that die, you don't see them, and they're humans anyways, like when they're getting killed, really. So she chops off that dude's arm, and then she runs off to the like the doctors.
She goes to the office. She goes to the offices.
And that's where Eddie pops out and does
terrorizes the shit out of her for a little while.
Yeah, he's like holding her up by the neck, and he's just he's like a complete like sociopath. He's trying to like hurt her.
Yeah,
and,
he's enjoying it. He's very much enjoying this.
Yeah, and he you don't see exactly what he does to her until later,
right?
When DeWalt comes by and sees him, and this is when he starts transforming again. And she slams that bottle of acid on his head, and it's like the sounds that are coming out of him. It's like, it's like, it's the sound design in this movie is fucking dope.
Yeah,
too,
it's really
right?
good.
It's like which is, you were talking about like what happens when you have when you're transforming and your bones are breaking and all that shit, and you're like growing hair and all that shit, and it's like. Damn, yeah, they do a good job of it, and that stuff is, it's kind of like, you know, gunfire and movies and video games and stuff. Like when you don't have the right sound effects, it just doesn't feel like visceral, right?
Right, yeah, the immersion isn't there.
Yeah, it's like anytime you have a CG, I hate when fucking movies do like, I hate more than almost anything else in movies when movies do CG gunfire.
Oh yeah,
and blood spray, like instead of like just using like squids.
I'm always a practical over computer guy. I mean, I think that the Thing prequel would have been a good movie had they not taken all those awesome practical effects out, and just because everything just looks too clean.
Yeah,
and it's not good.
Yeah, that movie I will never watch again. And I really liked, what do you call her in it? Mary Elizabeth Weinstein.
Yeah, Mary Elizabeth Weinstein.
That was in that stretch where she was in a whole bunch of movies. That was after like Scott Pilgrim and everything, like when she was in that. And she was in and I think that the Thing prequel might have been the one that was just like that, like killed her career a little bit, or killed her like getting a bunch of mainstream stuff, right?
Yeah, that was pretty bad. Pretty bad. I don't know if the movie itself is bad, but I just can't get into it because of how poor the effects look. Yeah. Like when that guy starts changing on the fucking helicopter, I just you don't feel it. You know, there's no impact there. It just looked, because everything just looked too clean and shit. And I was like, and I don't know, poor use of sound too, because dude, this guy's like literally changing. His whole bone structure and everything is changing, and it just didn't feel like there was anything there. But you take a fucking 40-year-old movie, and you stack this transformation sequence up against a transformation sequence from The Thing, the newest one, and this is so much better. It just feels like real. I love it.
It's like you have like, I don't know. It's this weird thing where you don't even get all that much like R-rated horror anyways from those big studios anymore, right? It's like one of the reasons why Josh and I talked about it doing like more independent and like foreign stuff, because it has a lot of these movies feel like they have a realer connection with like just people who love horror and want to do that stuff. Like we still run into stinkers. We ran into The Call with Tobin Bell and what's her name from Insidious, the older lady from Insidious. Well, the lady, the old, like the psychic lady from Insidious.
Yeah, Lin Shaye.
Yeah, Lin Shaye. Yeah, we watched that movie because those two were in it, and oh my god, that movie was
not good.
Shit show. Yeah. Well, they were ripping off lines from Nightmare on Elm Street. And and it's just like, oh. But yeah, so Terry's sitting there and like investigating this house, and this werewolf bounces through the doorway, and she gets away, but she like you're talking about, like she chops his arm off with this like this hatchet she finds, and then she runs off, and Eddie gets her, and because he's already transformed, right?
He's already transformed when he finds her on the phone, because she's on the phone talking to it's either her husband or boyfriend.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, the guy who works at the station with her.
Yeah, Chris.
And yeah, she's on the phone with him when Eddie starts torturing the shit out of her, and that's like the guy is like calling the cop, who's also a werewolf. Spoiler alert. Everyone's a werewolf. It's like Oprah. You're a werewolf.
Yeah.
And you get to be a werewolf.
Oprah was just giving out lycanthrope disease.
Yeah. And this is like, everything's, this whole like second and third act, like once it it's like the last half an hour, 40 minutes of this movie, it's just fucking balls to the wall crazy and intense, because Dee Wallace is sitting there, and like she has this run-in with her husband the next day after he goes out and starts fucking by the fireside. With some Marvin Gaye going. Oh, you think they had some Marvin Gaye playing there? Just like, it's getting on, like the Wolf remix. And they're sitting there, and after he hits her, like she runs off, and she's like, I think she's looking for Terry is basically what she's doing. But she goes to that office, and Eddie starts. This is where Eddie like is doing the transformation in front of her, and this is like the first time you see the transformation, because you've seen the werewolves like in the shadows a little bit, but like Eddie's coming out, and he's got that bullet in his head, and like he like starts like ripping the bullet out of his. You're like,
yeah, he digs the one out in the side, because there was two bullet holes, one in the right square in the fucking center, and then one off to the side, and he reaches in and pulls that bullet out. It's pretty dope.
Yeah, it's pretty metal, man. And he starts transforming, and this is where like the best. This is the main transfer. This is like, I think a lot of people compare the two movies, because Howling and American Werewolf, because they came out in the whole Rick Baker connection. And again, I was saying this to you before, like the American Werewolf in London transformation is probably more skillfully shot as a you know, in the practical effects account. But man, this scene is way more horrifying. And because it's the thing where they're sitting there, and he's doing this in front of her. Like American Werewolf in London, it's this guy in the apartment by himself while his like girlfriend's like being a nurse or whatever. This is a serial killer that already tried to kill this woman once, who she saw get like hauled off and shot in the fucking head, and survives, and you sit there and you go, holy it. I don't know if I'm like, and it was one of those scenes when you're watching a horror movie and you're like, no, bitch, move, get the fuck out of there. Like it feels like you'd be at this theater like screaming and like throwing popcorn or something. Like, get the fuck out. What are you doing standing there? But it makes sense because in this context they like build it up, man. They show you how traumatized Dee Wallace's character is and how much she's been through, and like this one incident is like, it's PTSD like front and center, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like she's sitting there watching this, and it's like, this is where you were talking about like the bubbling and the like the fur and everything growing on. And it's fantastic. It's
so good.
It's scary because it's like it's sitting there happening in front of this woman. I think this is like, I think that it's more of like a primal thing in this movie versus just like pure like technique in American Werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they both have their, they're both great scenes, but man, yeah. So Dee Wallace hits Eddie in the head with this acid and gets out, and then she's going back in. Where does she go after this? She goes to.
She gets captured.
Oh yeah, they capture her.
Yeah.
And this is when the husband's trying to show up, and he's like stopping of Terry, and he's like stopping at a gas station, and there's rednecks like, we all can't afford a Mazda. And
yeah, I know. I thought the same. He was like, hey, not every one of us can afford Mazdas, okay, buddy? And he was just like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything?
He's like, he's just trying to get gas, and there must be only like one pump at this gas
apparently
station.
Yeah.
He's like, this is an emergency, and the guy's like, not all of us can afford no Mazda. And it's like, what? Was I don't know how affordable Mazdas
I don't think Mazdas were that expensive. I mean, my folks had one when I was a kid, and we were poor. So I mean, I don't know.
It's very like Deliverance at that point, like do 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 do. Which I don't know if I learned it. It's been the last couple of years. There are supposedly a lot of like good old boys in California, man. Like,
in California, really?
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of like rednecky. I mean, that's like the like middle of nowhere rednecky thing that's coming like through a lot of this movie, and you go, California, huh? yeah, outside of LA and San Fran, right? Yeah, so he had been like, he went to the bookstore. Terry's husband, boyfriend, whatever he is, had been they'd been investigating and going to this bookstore, and that's where Terry had found out a lot of the stuff about werewolves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this dude goes back to the bookstore, and this, I don't know how he's just got like, somehow has like a whole, like he's got like 20 rounds or something.
Oh, it's
like,
because he explains that the first time they were there, he was talking about the reason that he has all this occult shit is just because it sells. And he goes, I get shit all the time. He's like, look at these, and that's when he shows them the bullets. He's like, somebody ordered all these silver bullets for a 30-06, and then the fucking guy didn't even show up to pick them up. So he's just got them there, trying to sell them. I love it when he buys them, though. When he shows up to actually take them, he just throws money on the thing and grabs them. And good old Dick Miller comes out. He's like, man, those are real silver. I need to get a jeweler to find out how much those are worth. And he hollers back at him, bill me.
Yeah, he goes, bill me. And he's like, man, it's Dick Miller has probably like 5 minutes in this movie.
Yeah, something like that. But I love him. I fucking love Dick Miller, man. He was great. Yeah. He probably has 1 million acting credits. I swear to God, he was in damn near everything in the 80s.
Yeah, he was like, it's one of those character actors where you're sitting there and he's just like, every time you see him, you're like, God, I love this motherfucker.
Yeah, he passed away in the beginning of 2019 at the age of 90. He had 184 acting credits.
Jesus
fucking
Christ,
awesome, man.
And all like most of them are like he's got stuff like TV series and stuff like that. So he's got TV movies, TV series,
Yeah.
all that stuff, man. He was in Demon Knight, another one of the episodes that I love. You guys.
Oh
really
yeah, I love me some Demon Knight, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was.
He's had so many fucking acting credits. He was in Chopping Mall also.
Dude, I
love that movie, and I just love the fact, he has so many acting credits, and he like not a lot of screen time, because so like in each movie he put like 5-10 minutes, and then that's about it. That's his day was done. Like he probably did all this shit. Funny little fact is his name was Walter Paisley in this movie. His name was Walter Paisley in Chopping Mall as well.
I wonder if that's some like generic, like it's like the John Smith of horror movies. Or something like
Maybe.
that,
Yeah, I don't know. That's funny. He played in Night of the Creeps. His name was Walt.
Man, I haven't watched Night of the Creeps in years, but that movie is fantastic.
Yeah, that movie's awesome.
There's all those night of movies of the 80s, like Night of the Demons and stuff like that.
He played in Twilight Zone, the movie. His character name, Walter Paisley.
There must be some jokes somewhere.
I think there's a running joke here, and I'm here for it. I fucking love it.
Yeah, it's like this things that you don't like. It's Well, let's think about it. Like before IMDb, how would you ever have known like what these characters' names were?
Right.
Things, like, like, and it's like, so you have these guys, and it's just like, they're like, what do you want to be what do you want your character to be named? Walter or whatever.
Walter Paisley.
Oh, yeah. And it's okay, and it's just like especially because how long he was around doing shit, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he was active for a long time. I think the 50s. Yeah, 1955 is his first credit, and all the way through to 2019. So a 64-year career. That's pretty awesome, man. That's super
crazy.
Awesome.
Yeah, and he was like, I wonder if did he appear in any of the sequels? I wonder.
That's a good question.
I don't know. How many Howling movies are there? Is my next thing.
Oh, that's
seeing all the.
Well, let's find out.
There's so many. Like I'm like looking at it on the bottom of IMDb, and I see like at least 5. I just see so many of them, but I start seeing them being marked as PG-13, and I'm like, it's funny because I never saw that the Wes Craven werewolf movie that got fucking. It sounds like it got mutilated by the studio that he did. What was that one called with Christina Ricci, and that he did? It was like one of the last 3 or 4 movies he made. Where
the Curse.
The Curse, yeah.
Yeah, that was that Wes Craven movie, The Curse, or Cursed. It was called Cursed. I think that was written by Andrew, or not. I think that was written by Kevin Williamson as well.
That was another movie that was like, Wes Craven shot super like hardcore, and then the studio made him go back and like
change all sorts of shit. Yeah, I'd love to see the director's cut of that. I don't know if there is one. That's a good question. I think there's 8. I think there's 8 Howling movies.
Damn, man, that's it. It's funny because like I think we talk talking about things like all these 80s series, and I don't think the Howling gets like brought up as like having as many. I don't think a lot of people know as many sequels as there are about it. Like,
yeah, that's because I think pretty much all of them, with the exception of part 2, probably went to direct-to-video, because I think the sequel opened in movie theaters.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I don't think I've talked about it. Josh and I always talk about it because of his graphic art thing. The poster for this movie is fucking dope, man. It's like,
oh hell yeah, it is.
Like it's like a face behind like what's like the werewolf, and like the claws coming through the skin and shit like that. It's pretty fucking awesome. Yeah. So we could like wrap up what happens. Whatever the guy that Terry's boyfriend, husband, whatever he is, shows up with the bullets.
Mm-hmm.
And they're about to I don't know if they're gonna turn Dee Wallace into a werewolf. Like this is what you and I were talking about, where they don't really talk about the end game. Like they start arguing with each other about what they want to do, and it seems like the younger werewolves are mostly younger werewolves are like pissed because they're trying to hide. It's the same thing that happens in a lot of vampire movies about like how, we should be hiding, and then like other ones are like, no, we should, like, humans are our prey. But then the guy shows up and finds what's his name, Eddie, at where his wife was, and he finds her. Like, he doesn't find her, right? He just finds blood everywhere. Dee Wallace found her.
Yeah, Dee Wallace found her and Eddie at the same time.
Yeah, and they take the body was taken over the
barn.
Barn and there's blood everywhere, and Eddie comes in, and he's like, you can see how fucked up he is after this.
He looks cool.
Yeah. It's one of those effects, man. It kind of reminds me of like Tar Face and stuff.
Oh,
like that.
yeah.
From like Night of the Living Dead, or not
Return of the Living Dead. Yeah,
Return of the Living Dead. I can never remember the goddamn name of that movie. But,
put some respect on it.
Yeah, it's in there. It's like, I don't know. It just doesn't stick. But it, like, his hat, like you can see his skull, and like I'm pretty sure one of his eyes, his right eye is like missing and stuff like that, and but he's like starts transforming, and like he had taken the rifle from this dude and doesn't realize that there's silver bullets in it. And he's like, this is how much of a, like, sociopath Eddie is. He's like, he gives him back the rifle. He's like, I'm invincible. You can't fuck with me. And then Eddie's like, okay. I mean, not Eddie. What's this guy's actual name? Yeah. Chris is just like, okay, you want to give this back to me? Bam, and shoots him, and Eddie regretted that for the next couple seconds. He seemed to be alive.
Probably.
Yeah. So Chris goes back, and he goes and makes his way to the barn where they're about to eat Dee Wallace.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to eat her or if they're going to convert her.
Yeah. They say that they're worrying about it, though, because they go, she's too famous to, like...
Yeah.
To like, make, I think they were arguing about it, and they're like, oh no, he talks about the psychiatrist dude is like, yeah, you need to put him in a car. That's why the husband was in the car, right? Because they were gonna put, like, light the car on fire and like push it over a cliff or something like that to get rid of Dee Wallace's character more than the husband. But since it was the husband, he was gonna be over, like, they needed to get rid of him too. And so Chris shows up and starts popping caps.
Yeah, he starts fucking wasting some fucking werewolves, man. He does.
Yeah. He shoots like two of them.
I think he shoots three. I think he ends up shooting three, and they all he backs them all into the fucking barn, and him and Karen barricade the barn with one of the hillbilly werewolf rifles.
Yeah. And then they light it on fire, which is, I think that the thing that I would have like I know why they did it, but man, if that was me, I would have been there and made sure to watch that motherfucker burn.
Yeah, I probably would have too.
Because they're like, they show them, they drive off in they're like werewolf snouts like busting through, and you're like,
yeah, they start busting holes through the wall and everything.
Well, and we know that Marsha, Elizabeth Brooks' character, gets out because she's in the final scene in the movie.
Yep.
And it looks like she's like on the poster for number 2, so she must be like.
I think her character is in the second. I've never seen the sequel to this. I think her character is the main focus of the sequel. I believe. Yeah. But I could be wrong.
I mean, we know how Andy loves the really bad the entries in some of these series, so maybe we'll ask Andy how the Howling 2 through 8 are. They lock up everyone in this barn and then light the barn on fire. They drive off and then like they see the sheriff, and this is another thing that I don't know how much sense it makes at that point for anything, like why they would trust anyone in any vicinity of this town. And this scene actually kind of made me laugh though. The sheriff is like, they're gonna like slow down and stop and talk to the sheriff,
Yeah.
and tell him what happened. And he's like transforming and shooting them at the same time. So he's got like the werewolf teeth in, and he's trying to shoot him. And they finally they hit him with the rifle. And this is where it gets like really terrifying it again, because their car is fucked up, and they go into the cop car. Yeah, so that's the husband was in the back of the cop car, right?
No, he was in the back of, I think, their car. You know what? I don't even fucking remember. Yeah. He might have been in the back of the cop car.
He was in the back.
He had to be. He had to be in the back of the cop car. Actually.
Yeah.
I think he was just one of the werewolves that was attacking him, wasn't he? And then because they bust in. It shows them bust in the back windshield and get in, I believe, or through the top of the car, because they tear that fucking car up.
Oh yeah. They're going through everything, and like the windshield's all fucked up, and everything's all like destroyed. They shoot a couple more of the werewolves, but yeah, like Karen D. Wallace gets bit by her husband, and she shoots him. And this is like they get away at this point, but like, because everything you've seen, you're like, oh, she's fucked. So this is the most like kind of like, it's kind of a pretty fucking dope ending for this movie. Is like, she goes on and she's gonna tell him, like, she's gonna go on the news and explain to everyone, and they have this monologue for her, and like this dialogue about everything that happened. But she goes off about something, and her and Chris had basically written something, and then she starts transforming live on television, and like the executive dude is like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Like, he's telling them to switch camera, and Chris is like, don't you fucking dare.
Yeah.
And so like she gets the like, where she looks like the weirdest, like, I don't know if it was because of where she stopped or was stopping in the train. She looked like a puppy, like kind of. Like,
yeah. She had like a smush nose.
Yeah, it was very like, it was like Gizmo, but as a werewolf. She and Chris shoots her, and they cut to this like redneck bar in the middle of nowhere, and
but I will say this redneck bar has the best looking burgers.
Oh yeah.
Tell me that fucking. Well, you're a vegan, right? You're a vegetarian, right?
No, I'm not. Okay,
no. You're not a vegetarian.
No.
Okay, for some reason I was thinking you were a vegetarian.
No.
But those burgers look so fucking good, dude.
Yeah, they did.
And that patty was so fucking big that they plopped on the grill. Oh man.
Before they get to the bar, though, I think another pretty awesome part. They have like these two little kids in their pajamas watching the news.
The news lady's turning into a werewolf.
and the mom is like, oh man, you could hear like moaning in the background.
Yeah.
About, like, oh my god. And yeah, then they go to this. They have these rednecks arguing about this, about whether like none of these guys are affected by this.
None.
Like, it was live news, and they're like, oh, those Hollywood special effects.
Yeah.
And like, okay, guys.
Yeah, it's a reflection on it. This is kind of a telling thing, though, because you know what? That's how that would be.
Oh yeah.
If that shit happened, especially now, that's how. Because the problem is that as a society, most of a society don't really pay attention to shit that happens in front of them, man. Like they just watch. You have stuff on and you just don't really absorb it, because honestly, especially today, we're all on our fucking smartphones, like we got other shit. We absorb shit differently, and we've been doing that. As a society, we've been doing that forever,
Well, dude, it's the whole thing, and I don't know how much I believe it, but I kind of believe the possibility of it. It's the whole like the government knows about aliens, but like keeps it away so that like the masses don't like panic or whatever. And you go, oh, I mean, after like the last year and a half have shown that like society is. It's like you guys talking about like Dawn of the Dead remake last on your show this week, and like how people handle this stuff, and it's like your joke about the toilet paper.
Oh God, yeah.
I was like, yeah, man, it's exactly what would happen.
That it is. We're
like,
we're a very we're really very close to snapping overall as a society. And when this pandemic hit, it really showed just how close we are to being crazy. Because when the number one priority and the number one thing that you can't keep in stock in a fucking store is ass wipe, literally something that you throw away.
Yep.
That is ridiculous. That is mind-boggling. That was what our society was grasping for, was ass wipe. Shit that we throw a fucking way. That's what its purpose is. Yeah. Toilet paper was created to be trash. And our society latched onto that like it was gold.
Well, dude, it proved like a lot. Like it was the people, as soon as the shit hits the fan, think about only one thing.
Yeah.
A lot of which is themselves. And it's like it's the whole like. There wasn't any actual real problem with like supplies. It was just motherfuckers going out and like, I need toilet paper to last me until 2043.
Yeah, it's exactly. Like, hey, guess what, buddy? In a pinch, you can use anything, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Leaves.
Yeah, you can use leaves. You can use a receipt. I mean, you can just not wipe and just get up and scrub your ass in the fucking sink. Exactly. I'm not spending $40 on toilet paper to last me a lifetime just because, well, I say just because I'm not trying to trivialize our pandemic by any means. Yeah. But I mean, it was just strange. Like, but that's how society is. Like, we're very close to not being, we're all a couple of sandwiches short of a picnic basket. Dude, it's been like that for years. It has. It's been like that for years.
That's one of those reasons why I really, really appreciate horror and comedy too, because I feel like those are the two that like can hit stuff like this and can like make movies about. It's like I still say Idiocracy is the scariest horror movie of all time, and it wasn't. And you go, and that movie was way more far-fetched seeming when it came out, but man, after the last like year, you go, okay, Idiocracy is just like whatever. Yeah, so, I mean the last shot of the whole movie is Marsha is sitting at the end of the bar and wanting the one of the old rednecks is like getting a steak and she wants a hamburger and the guy goes, well, how do you want it? Rare.
Of course.
And it's just like, you're like, because she's a werewolf, she's gonna eat everyone, and she's gonna go.
Can't get over how fucking good looking those burgers looked.
Oh, dude, they look so good. You're sitting there and going, dude, I was streaming tonight and someone was going off about started talking about Taco Bell stuff, and I'm like, I am not I'm here doing what I'm doing, and I'm like, stop bringing up delicious sounding food when I'm doing this, man.
That's funny.
But man, I am actually really impressed with how well this movie holds up, and
it is pretty good.
Yeah. It doesn't actually even have it doesn't have a huge body count.
No, not really. A lot of werewolves die.
Yeah, but it's and you don't see anything like that. You just they fall over after being shot. You don't see there's the arm scene is probably the most intense scene in the movie.
Yeah,
with
Terry's death isn't even all super ultra graphic. Her body reveal is pretty dope.
There's blood everywhere. Yeah, but they don't even it's not like her intestines are hanging out even.
No, when she's in the barn though, it's pretty good. There's some pretty good effects on her corpse in the barn. You can see I think you can see ribs and shit, but
it looks like the whole they were eating her skin or
something like
her
that.
Skin was
But yeah, the body count is it's all werewolves, it's all villains. I mean, really.
The two no, I mean it's like Terry.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, the body count in this movie is all bad guys, essentially.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's like it's one of those things where it's like you think 80s horror, and it's like, dude, the body count in American Werewolf in London is way
higher
because like they fuck up I mean that motherfucker his buddy gets killed and taken out like first thing in that movie, and then he's taking out people the rest of the movie, let alone
he's an efficient werewolf for being a young werewolf.
yeah. Well, it's so funny, man. Like I werewolves are always like that. They're always that like, even more than like vampires. They're that like primal instinct of human beings, right? And that is what they always equate. And it's like that's why like Ginger Snaps is so good, because it's that movie's about a werewolf movie, but it's about becoming a woman and like all the things that means, and like all the things that happen and changes and stuff like that. And it's so unique because one, it's like you have that woman aspect. Women in horror are so really, it's an interesting thing to talk about, but the woman character being the one to go through and do all that stuff. You don't see women killers in movies all that often. I mean, it happens, really. But like I still think of things like High Tension being one of those movies that like,
that's a rad movie.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't like that movie because of the ending, but like
I like it. I like that movie a lot.
Yeah. But like Ginger Snaps and the like the female werewolves and just what werewolf movies can mean. And man, I hope whenever they're making, Universal's remaking a werewolf movie in this whole like remakes and Universal slate of monster movies that are coming out now because of the Invisible Man. So it'll be interesting to see who does it.
Andy Muschietti remaking The Howling.
Really?
Yeah, for Netflix. Apparently it's gonna be a Netflix exclusive. And Andy Muschietti, who's behind It's Chapters 1 and 2, he's supposed to be remaking The Howling. That'd be good. That could be very interesting.
Yeah, hopefully he learns from It Chapter 2. Like It Chapter 2.
It Chapter 2 is only good, not great. It Chapter 1 is great.
It Chapter 2 has way too much CGI.
It's got way too much humor.
Yeah. Josh goes off about that on here all the time, about just the amount of CGI. In that
it's pretty CGI heavy.
And the guy's talented though, man. Like I wonder often, like, how much can you save the second half of that movie?
Yeah, because you're right, because it Chapter 2, the second half of the miniseries was weak too. Yeah. It's for some reason when they become adults, it becomes less scary. I don't know if it's because we're dealing with adults or what, but both It Chapter 1 is fantastic, and the first half of the miniseries is fantastic.
Yeah.
So
it's way more terrifying that like 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds are being destroyed. I mean, it's scary enough when but like we also have enough of that, right? We have enough. It's Stephen King though, man. I love Stephen King. Don't get me wrong, but there's a reason why the joke about him and finishing things, like especially the second one, is like you talk about it, it's like he's even in on it. Like that guy has had a hard time finishing things. Yeah. And it's he sure
finished the fuck out of Maximum Overdrive though, baby.
Yes.
I love that fucking terrible movie.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Oh, like, you gotta watch it, buddy. Yeah. You gotta. It's not good, but it sure is fun. Yeah. It's got the best soundtrack. It's because it's nothing but AC/DC.
Yes.
It is. It's all pretty much the Who Made Who album, essentially.
Dude, it makes me laugh because like that like when you get bands to do sound, that's like why Suspiria's. They talk about Suspiria again. That the soundtrack that was all made by Goblin, right? And and is fucking dope.
Oh yeah, it's been badass. Yeah.
Yeah, it's when you get that bands to do something like that. It's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And it's all interesting. But man, I think I think werewolf movies need to like get revisited.
I agree.
Really do. I hope that whatever werewolf movie comes out of the Universal thing does something. And
they just got to give it to a passionate guy, man. Like, 'cause that's why The Invisible Man was so good. Because Lee Winnell is passionate. He's
smart.
He's smart. Yeah. I mean, he took he knew he thought of a great way to make The Invisible Man socially relevant.
Yeah.
And he thought of a great way to make it in the realm of possible.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, obviously light years away of that technology, but in the realm of possible.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it felt like something that could happen. And of course, you know, Elizabeth Moss is wonderful.
Yeah. She's so good in that. And if they could keep doing stuff like that, where they make stuff where it's like, I think you do something with like genetic modification or something like that, like for like the werewolf, like if you do something like them, bring it to something that like kind of, it's not if you're gonna keep all this shit grounded, you have to do it at least like something kind of semi-believable. And like,
did they already tap a director for this film?
I don't know. So there's a whole bunch of this slate of things that they haven't like, they're saying like real like light on details about a bunch of them, right? Like I know that they're like having the other guy from Saw doing something too, and they're just having, it just seems like they're like, you would have to look into it because like it seems like a lot of the things are, I don't know how solid they are, right? Like, but I think they might have just been trying to sign shit up after Invisible Man.
I think they had Ryan Gosling attached to that at one point, but I don't believe that he's there anymore. You know who I'd like to see make the Wolfman? Christopher Landon.
Yeah.
Guy who made Freaky.
Yeah.
And Happy Death Day.
He'd be awesome.
Yeah. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it cheap. I'd like to see it just like The Invisible Man. You know what I mean? Because that wasn't a big budget. You know, it was a Blumhouse movie. No Blumhouse movie is. I mean, not that they're made with nickels. They're made with quarters. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just you need to have someone really good and using practical effects, because I don't want CG anything. And
I don't want a CGI werewolf, yo.
No more.
That's why I like the Underworld werewolves, because those were all practical prosthetics and shit.
Yeah.
And honestly, I like the design of the werewolf in the Underworld movies. I think they're fucking cool looking.
They're cool, yeah. I like that the werewolves in those movies are that they kind of remind me of the Howling werewolves, where they're like they're very like turn it on, right? It's not like the Wolfman Primal like or American Werewolf. Like they turn it on when they want to, and they fuck shit up when they do, which is, I think it makes it scarier, right? It makes it like, because you're not it's not this like one night a month or whatever that you have to be like. The thought with that always goes like, you can chain a motherfucker up for one night a month or 3 nights a month or whatever like mythos they're following with it, right? But like, if these motherfuckers are evil and they can just like turn it on whenever they want, that's horrifying. That's way scarier. It's like you never know when it's coming kind of thing. It's like, that makes things way scarier. It's like why like Freddy is like way more horrifying than most villains, because you never know if he's going to come into your dreams and fuck you up and kill you in your dreams, right? Like, because you don't know it's coming. When you don't know something's coming, it's way scarier.
Yeah, I'm more scared of shit I can't see than things that I can. Yeah, that's for sure.
Exactly. And I don't know, man. I like werewolves, and I mean, you and I both are. You got a couple years on me, but like, we both grew up in the 80s when there was like, all this shit was like, there were way more werewolf movies, there were way more vampire movies, and all that stuff has kind of gone into like, that doesn't happen anymore. So this stuff, like, we don't get werewolf. I mean, it doesn't help that we had the Twilight movies that happened. And
I think I'm trying to remember. I think I've only seen like the first two. Or the first? I know I've seen the first one because I was actually honestly surprised at how pretty good the first Twilight movie actually is.
The first Twilight one has a great soundtrack, and it's not great, but like it's way more competent of a film.
Yeah, it's actually
like,
a pretty really it's a pretty good movie. Twilight 1 is not a bad movie by any means.
Yeah.
But I think I watched the second one and that was it, I want to say.
Dude,
and I hated it.
Go watch the last one, which has the CGI demon baby that is one of the most laughable uses of CG that you will ever see in your entire life.
Oh man.
It's horrifying. And believe me, I didn't go see any of these movies by myself. I was dragged along by the wife, so it is.
Thankfully, my wife read the books and hated them, so we didn't have to go see. She hated those books. She liked the very last book, though. She actually said the last book was really good. But she forced herself through the entire series because she wanted to see what the big deal was,
The problem with that, like in the movie wise though, they had one of those things where they had this giant final battle thing, and then you go, "Oh no, it was all a dream," and you go, when movies do that, it makes me angry. Just like
that
it's
makes
like
me want to punch a baby.
Yeah, dude, it was that same thing with that drug movie that came out where it was like Kick-Ass and who else was in it? Some other guy was in it, but where they were like fighting over this girl, and like it was all drugs. I can't think of the name of the movie, but like it had the same thing where it was at the ending. It was just like there was this sequence and everyone died, and they go, "Oh no, just kidding! It was just a dream." And you go,
that movie. That's the movie Wisdom. If you've ever seen the movie Wisdom with Emilio Estevez. Okay, yeah, that movie will infuriate you too because it's a pretty super cool movie, and then at the end of the movie, I'll just spoil it. He wakes up in the tub, and he was just like kind of having a dream while he was taking a bath or taking a shower or cleaning up or something like that. The whole movie was just a fucking dream.
Jacob Slatter's like that too, but
Jacob Slatter's kind of like that. Jacob Slatter, the whole thing is him going through that dying, and yeah. It's kind of, so I can see it's kind of the same because at least that's not he didn't just wake up like a fucking episode of Family Guy.
That's another movie I've never seen, but like the ending has gotten spoiled for me over the years.
Oh, Jacob's Ladder, really?
Yeah,
that's too bad because that movie is actually really good. Honestly, don't watch the remake. I haven't seen it, but I've heard nothing good about it.
Dude, we watched the remake of what the fuck was it called? The other Scanners? Not Scanners. What's the the one with that Kiefer Sutherland was.
Flatliners.
Yeah,
is that bad?
And
that remake's bad.
The remake was real bad.
I heard the remake was actually a sequel.
It seemed like a remake to me.
Okay. Have you seen the original then? Because the original's badass.
I don't know if I have actually.
The original Flatliners is super good. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's dude. All those remakes that happened. We're just ranting, but I don't care. All those remakes were like that, like from '80s movies, like RoboCop. The RoboCop remake just had no soul. It didn't have a reason. But
the RoboCop remake was oddly average. It wasn't in the realm of shit. Yeah. And it was very average, but when you boil it down to it, it just didn't have a purpose. Yeah. And that's I really think the only reason they even made RoboCop or remade RoboCop was just because they were like, "Hey man, we got cool technology now."
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's literally it.
Yeah. Well, it's like we talk about enough horror movies here from like foreign things, and like I know you weren't a huge fan of Old Boy, but like I would never watch that Josh Brolin one. I just can't imagine it being good at all. Yeah, dude. Oh, also, it's another movie where Marvel Universe characters have uncomfortable relationships because Thanos is fucking the Scarlet Witch in the movie, and just like you were talking about Godzilla, where Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver fucking are brothers in the Marvel Universe. No, thank you.
Yeah,
no, thank you.
That's right. I forgot that she is in that, isn't she? I forgot all about that. Yeah, because I've never seen the Old Boy remake.
Yeah, I haven't either. She played the sushi character, so you just think about how that equates, and you're like,
yeah. Okay. I'll have to watch Old Boy again. I didn't hate it; it just wasn't for me. But
I mean, there's a lot that movie is the first time, especially because, and then you watch it again, and it like things. Also, it's like just the Korean sensibility is something I think is not completely like right there for everyone the first time, and I get it if it's
that could be it.
You.
But I will like the things that really stuck out in that movie for me is the cinematography is fantastic in Old Boy, and the choreography is unreal because that's that fight, that one shot, that shot that everybody's mimicked and replicated. Even the fucking Daredevil show did the same thing. That's fantastic. Like that's top notch filmmaking.
I watched. We would rewatch it for the podcast. It was that, and the cinematography is amazing, and the scores of those movies are all just like genius. Like Korean, like the ones that we've like looked at they're genius all the way through, and it just feels like they're like playing a different ball game from like Hollywood, like a lot of times, right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And which is why I kind of like it's been interesting watching all these like in these indie movies that like a lot of them are forced to do like more like John Carpenter type scores, right? They're like very like synth heavy. Like you could tell probably one person went through and scored the whole movie. And like we just did a movie called Come True, which is all about like night terrors and like and sleeping and just like that. But like small Canadian movie, and this got this like synth sounding soundtrack that goes really well with like dreaming and like landscapes of like that. And so it's interesting like seeing how like music can I don't think I can ever say one of my favorite horror movies is like got a bad soundtrack, because horror and music go together so well, right?
Agreed. So I think any emotional type of film where you're dealing with raw emotions, it's almost necessary to have a really good accompanying score of sorts, because that's what music does in combination with visual. It's all emotional. So I agree.
Yeah, it's
my favorite. Obviously, my favorite horror movie is my favorite movie, which is Halloween. It's got one of the greatest soundtracks ever written. And
just John Carpenter, doing that thing where he just does, he directs the fuck out of the movie and then like goes and that. I think it's truly underappreciated by like. Think about that again. He directs the shit out of a movie like Halloween, which is still one of the best horror movies ever made, and then scores the shit out of Halloween. Yeah,
scores the fuck out of it too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because you think about it, like I think it like what are the two movies like horror movies that you think of like with the soundtracks? You think of like Halloween, and you think of like Friday the 13th, and
Friday the 13th has an iconic score.
Yeah, which I think when you and Andy talked about like the remake, or you were probably talking about it something else, just how they never even use the
barely.
It's crazy. So okay. Well, we've been blabbering about other things for a long time, but Brian, dude, I could just sit there and bullshit with you.
I love talking horror with you too, bud. It's good. Good stuff.
Good time. I know that everyone who listens probably knows you anyways, but tell everybody where Dead in Santa Carla is and when it comes out and all that.
Well, me and Andy record episodes and drop them every Monday. New episode. Basically what we do is we do a pretty similar format to what you get here at the Murder Moose podcast. Is we just pick a movie and we talk about it, and you kind of go through it, little tidbits about it, and then we usually score it at the end of it. But yeah, new episodes every Monday. We're available on all major podcast platforms. And we also have a YouTube that we launched, and just look for Dead in Santa Carla on any of those platforms. You'll find us. If you want to reach us on Twitter, it's at DeadInSC Podcast. And
Brian's not allowed to touch that.
I don't do a lot with the Twitter. That's all Andy. He's so much better at it than I am. I'm terrible at social media. But we're on Facebook too. If you guys want to throw a Facebook like out there.
You guys did Dawn of the Dead this week?
Yeah, we did Dawn of the Dead this last Monday because this month what we do is we do theme months, and this month is called Revenge of the Remake. And we're just doing nothing but horror movie remakes. So next week we actually got to do the Nightmare on Elm Street remake from 2010. So I'm getting ready to force myself to watch Nightmare on Elm Street 2010. Man, I've literally seen that movie one time.
The theater.
I didn't go to the theater, thank God.
Oh, didn't? Okay, I saw it in the theater.
Ooh, that's rough.
It's funny because that movie still has like. What do you call hers? The girl with the dragon tattoo. What's her name?
Really pretty. Rooney Mara.
Yeah, Rooney Mara. That was one of her first, if not her first, like big roles.
Yeah, I think it was her first big role. I think so. She went on to, of course, she was fantastic in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Yeah. Okay, so go give them a follow and listen. If you don't, I mean, you should because, part of the Slash and Cast Podcast Network.
Yeah.
Murder Moose also is. So thanks a lot, Brian. And I'm Rod_Johnston everywhere. And we're Moose Murder Pod on Twitter. And our email is murdermoosepodcast@gmail.com. So go to our website, murdermoose.com, or just go contact us there. So thanks again, Brian. I appreciate it, man.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
You're spending a couple hours.
Yeah.
We're almost at 2 hours just bullshitting, and we've done like an hour of it. So, but... Yeah, dude, I was really happy that you said this movie because it was when I had to go find someone. I'm like, there's a lot of the times what the movies we're doing require like, scouting and stuff like that because they're not as common and stuff. So it was good to just go find something I'd never seen and was a really good fun watch. So, okay, everybody, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week. I don't know what's going on next week, so it might just be me again. And if so, I'll find another lovely person to go talk about. So love you all. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you guys later.